Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC and I build custom PCs to suit anyone's needs or budget. Also live stream my builds and repairs for transparency and educational purposes. So if you would like to get an awesome new PC and you'd like to see it put together live, send me a message today. Alright, so tonight we're going to be building Ella's PC. So Ella came to me wanting a PC for doing a bit of video editing, photo editing, but she also wants to do gaming on it as well. So we came up with this build here tonight. So I think it's pretty good. In my opinion, if I was on a budget and I wanted a nice balanced mix of gaming performance, editing performance with a bit of room for upgradability in the future, this is the sort of configuration that I'd probably be pretty keen on. If I'm going to be honest, so this configuration's just a fraction under 2200 all inclusive. So it's a pretty good value PC here. And we've got some good components going into it. Yeah, it ticks a few boxes. So we'll go through the components here. So we've got the Ryzen 5 5600G 6-core 12-thread CPU. Got our old friend, the MSI B550M Pro VDH Wi-Fi motherboard. We've got the Gigabyte. Start that again. It's such a freaking mouthful. The Gigabyte AMD Radeon RX 6600 XT. The Gigabyte AMD Radeon RX 6600 XT. How many fucking brands do I have to get into the one title? Say it really fast. I know, right? I know. We've got a Kingston KC 2500 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD. So this one here has got over 3 gigabyte a second read and write speeds. Why do I feel like I said that wrong then? Down here, where is it?
Yeah, that's it.
No, I'm after the memory. Our Corsair Vengeance. So I went with two 16 gigabyte sticks here, so Ella is able to easily upgrade.
3200.
Now you're stuffing up your words. You've had a glass of wine, so you've got an excuse. I don't drink, so I don't have any excuse. So, but yes, by going with the one kit here of 2 times 16 gigabytes as opposed to 4 times 8 gigabytes, Ella has the headroom to upgrade to 64 gigabytes of RAM if her workload gets more intensive and she needs a bit more memory there. For our cooler here, because we need to have a good cooler if we're going to be doing any sort of serious video editing. You don't necessarily need the highest spec CPU to do video editing. You can do it. It just means that on a smaller CPU, it just means that it'll take you a bit longer to actually render the video.
Better cooler for video editing? Would you go water cooled or air?
Well, you can go air or water. I mean, you can get a good. You can get a. I can give someone a air cooler that's got a cooling capacity of a certain amount of wattage, and I can give someone a all-in-one liquid cooler that's got a capacity to cool a certain amount of wattage. So that's really all it comes down to. In this case here, we can fit a 240mm radiator up top, which means that we've got a bit of room there for to sort of include that cooler. If we put an air cooler in there, like you could have a similar size radiator in terms of its mass and stuff attached to it as an air cooler, but you'd have bigger fans and stuff like that. It doesn't look as neat. And this unit here, it's got the 3-year warranty on it, so it's actually a decent unit. It's at a good price. That was, I think it was $149, so it's pretty good with the 3-year warranty. Pretty good value unit there. So, and we got.
I just noticed there's no fan for the back.
Oh no, there is a fan for the back.
Oh.
I just forgot to.
Oh, okay.
I just forgot to grab it from behind me. But yeah, there will be a fan on the back there as well. And for our power supply here, we've got the Gigabyte P750 GM. This is 80 plus gold efficiency rating. But the important thing that tells you that it's a decent quality unit is that it has a 5-year manufacturer's warranty. So that's the main thing. I don't care what efficiency rating it is. I care about how long they're going to warranty it, because that tells me how good quality all the stuff inside it really is. Because yeah, people think people just think, oh, I've got to get gold or platinum or some bullshit. Like that's, I say it so many times. I feel like a broken record on this, but it's it's literally a guide to the efficiency rating. So unless you're choosing a power supply with like the energy consumption in mind, I don't believe there are too many people building a computer in 2022 who are like looking at it going, right, need to cut back on my power supplies, wasted wattage. like that's not the reason why it's a thing. Is because people who have got a small business with like say 15-20 computers, obviously things like efficiency scale when you're dealing with like multiples. So then it becomes a case of, oh, do we spend an extra $30 each on all these power supplies and get the one with the better efficiency rating? Because over the course of however many years, it's going to save us X amount on electricity costs. That's what the efficiency rating is actually designed for. Mainstream consumers see it and then they misinterpret what it's actually about. Anyway, and finally our case here is the Antec NX320. It comes with 3 pre-installed RGB fans in the front there. And other than that, it is a pretty typical mid-tower case there. So that's pretty much all the components here that we're going to be putting in it. So Ella's got the ability to expand her storage. We've got 2 M2 slots on this motherboard. We've also got 4 SATA ports on this motherboard as well. So you could add 4 other SATA devices as well. So plenty of room to add any other existing storage devices that she might have and buy any more storage that she needs in the future. Alright, well, let's get started on the actual build. I'll stop crapping on with bullshit. Oh, yep. Cooking the cat a chicken. That's what we do in this house. Cats get roast chickens.
Yeah. Well, he won't eat anything else. He literally sticks his nose up at like dry cat food, wet cat food. I've tried him on gourmet stuff. Nah.
Just doesn't have it, does he, babe?
No, it's fucking annoying.
He doesn't even respond to it like it's food.
No, I've literally shoved
looks at it like inanimate objects and is just like, what do you expect me to do with this?
Yeah, he looks at it like it's dirt or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not eating that.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll be back.
No worries. Well, while she goes and roasts the cat a chicken, I'm going to show everyone this motherboard up close. So, we have an 8 pins CPU power here, our AM4 socket here, got a bit of a heatsink here on our MOSFET and VRM. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 fan headers on this motherboard. Obviously we've got 4 slots here for our memory, so dual channel. So it's 4 slots, 2 channels. The CPU can talk to 2 channels at the same time. So we've only got 2 sticks of memory that we're installing here. So we're going to install them in this slot and this slot here, because these 2 slots are 2 separate channels. So the CPU will be able to talk to both of them at the same time, whereas if they were if they're in 2 slots right next to each other like that, then we wouldn't have that luxury. We would only be able to communicate with the single channel. So we'd have the capacity, but not the bandwidth. So around here at the top here, the important little feature is the Easy Debug LEDs. This is 4 little lights that come on and tell you, or give you sort of a rough idea as to what's wrong with your computer, why it's not turning on and behaving correctly. So the lights are RAM, VGA, CPU, and boot. So it gives you 4 sort of categories there. It's not gospel. Don't if you see a CPU error, for example, that could also be a memory error. That's just the nature of how this technology is. CPU and memory kind of joined at the hips there. So don't ever read too much into that. These little lights are just a guide to what may be wrong. Over here we've got our main motherboard power. This is our ATX power. This powers everything else on our motherboard other than the CPU connection here. We've got a USB-C front panel connection header, so if you have a case with USB-C on it, you can plug in the header right there. Over here we've got 4 horizontally orientated SATA ports and a horizontally orientated USB 3 port. Down the bottom here we have a 5-volt RGB header. We have a RGB switch on the motherboard, so if we don't like RGB we can just turn it all off with a switch. Got our front panel connection header, our diagnostic speaker header, 2 front panel connection headers, a COM port header, various debug pins, temp sensor pins. We've got 2 12-volt RGB headers down here, and finally this one down at the very bottom corner is our front panel audio connection for our speaker and microphone jack on the case. And one thing I forgot to show you is right up the top here there's actually a second 5-volt RGB header there as well. So one up the top there and one down the bottom there, plus 2 12-volt ones there as well if you need them. Alrighty, and then around the back here, so we've got these little gold capacitors here. So all this stuff around here is our audio. We've got our audio jacks as close as possible to everything else. Audio being an electrical signal subject to electromagnetic interference, so best practice is to sort of put it all together in the one area to sort of limit any interference. We've got our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module pre-installed there on the board. We've got our Ethernet, 4 USB 3.0s, 2 USB 2.0s, PS2 port, and we have 3 other display output ports which we won't be using in this build because we've actually got a graphics card going in here that we're going to use. These would only use the onboard graphics chip on the CPU, so you won't get the same gaming performance if you don't plug in your display cable into the back of your graphics card there. For a lot of people, they'll have a CPU that won't even have an onboard graphics chip, so if they plugged into these ports here on the motherboard, they won't get any display signal at all. Alrighty, and that just leaves us with this stuff in the middle here. So we've got 1 and 2 M2 slots, with our PCIe X16 slot for our graphics card, and 2 X1 slots down there as well. We've also got our trusted platform module header for a security chip if you choose to install it. Microsoft were forcing that on people for Windows 11, now they've backtracked, so go figure. Anyway, that is all the main features here on this motherboard. So let's get started. So, we'll start with the CPU. So we don't need the included cooler. The included cooler is fine if you wanted to use this CPU just for gaming. But if we wanted to do video editing on it, really makes sense to have a better cooler. So why does it make sense to have a better cooler? Well, when you do video editing, you are basically banging on the CPU at 100% on all of its cores and all of its threads. And not only that, the type of instruction set that your CPU is processing, it is an instruction set that generates more heat physically based on what the actual CPU is doing in terms of where it's sending electrical signals around. It's generating more heat running this, and it's using the CPU 100% all cores and all threads. So what happens is if you don't have a good cooler on it, then it will get too hot, then it will start cutting the power back to stop itself from getting too hot, and then your performance just starts to drop right down. So if we wanted to have this Ryzen 5 5600G, we wanted to use it for video editing, and we wanted to make sure we could run this thing at like 100% capacity, not compromised at all, no matter what Ella wants to render on it. We really need to have the better cooler for it. So
I just stood in the freaking mat, broke my feet this time, forgot all about it again.
Hey Mick, how you going? Alrighty, let's get our memory on the board. $32 gigabytes with the option to expand to 64. It's not a bad way to go. And finally, our M2 drive.
This is Ruby, baby.
Oh,
I want to watch Austin Powers.
Mick will love this. Mick's a big
Yeah, I
he's a
need
big
to be Chinese
Radeon
sooner.
and AMD fanboy. He loves Team Red. Like we don't try to
We're not biased.
we don't try to be biased towards any brands here at Tim's PC. But you're allowed to be biased. You there's nothing. I'm not against you being biased.
Makes sense. Oh, guess what, Mick? I got banned from Facebook.
She got banned from Facebook. Step out of your book, isn't it, mate?
I've never been banned on Facebook. I was just like, what the fuck?
I think I've been banned once or something. Okay. Get my keyboard and mouse out of the way there. And let's turn our attention to the cooler. So what kind of mounting hardware are we going to be greeted with tonight? Is it what I have in my head? Or am I mistaken?
What happened? I said white chicks were crazy. In relation to another friend of mine.
Yeah, but we live in this highly charged and toxic age of racism and stuff
I'm
like
white. I'm allowed to say white chicks are stupid. Oh
Fair
no,
one.
I need to stop it. Maybe you might get flagged.
I don't think anyone here is going to report you for saying white chicks are stupid. We don't think
No,
that.
I'm just thinking of like, white cow.
She's just being hyperbolic.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That's all
Facebook
any
got
of
it
this
wrong,
is.
but it still
It's
thinks
just
it's bad.
hyperbole. It's contextual and stuff. 90% of people get
What my
banned
friend
from
posted
Facebook
was a
and stuff
joke
like
in
that.
the first place,
Yeah.
and I was making a joke related to the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. But I like my hair colour, thank you very much.
She dyes it that colour.
Yes. I'm literally like
She's a brunette.
Yes. It's very hard to keep orange hair. It's very expensive as well.
What we got here? RGB kit.
Oh, thanks, Mick.
What's that?
It says suits me.
Yeah.
I like to do things a little different. Whoa, does that one have the pump in the actual radiator?
No.
No? Why is this cable going into that?
Ooh. Ooh, good observation there, babe. Very good observation. That is just an RGB cable.
Kind of looks like that other one that has the.
I'm thinking. So yeah, I'm thinking I might front mount if that's the case. Because the rationale, so with all-in-one liquid coolers, whenever you position them, the pump needs to be at the low point.
So
Yeah.
Mixer's Facebook sent him a survey the other day and he was not kind by a long shot.
Yeah, I bet there's shitloads of people every day on Facebook who say things that deserve to be banned.
And they don't. But then there's like people just literally making a joke and Facebook's like, no.
Yeah.
Says hello there, Tillington's assistant.
Hey, how you going?
Happy what's today? Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yep. Midweek madness.
Happy hump day.
Yeah, basically. Okay. Let's get our block prepped. So we got some screws for our block. Yeah, good observation there, babe. Very good observation. So I'll change.
I was just looking at it and I
Yeah.
saw the cable coming out of the thing and I'm like,
Yeah, no,
hang on.
let's not lead to any warranty claims here.
Yeah, no,
There's been big issues with some people with various MSI ones that have the cooler in the block there. Alright, so you got a custom backplate to put together for this cooler. fixed holes down here. So you can just push them in place with your thumb with this cooler. And then once you've prepped your back plate, you can remove the AMD one and put the custom AMD one down. Oh, what am I doing? So, we're going to front mount it. Hopefully, I should be able to position this just like that. And yes, this cooler has pre-applied thermal compound. So that's why you didn't see me put any thermal down. Just an FYI. I had someone like freaking out in the comments one night when I had a cooler that didn't have that had thermal paste applied. And I didn't mention it, and I was just putting it together, and this guy's like, "Dude, no, you haven't got thermal paste on it, blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh, no, dude, no. This was a Corsair cooler, and it had pre-applied thermal on it." So. Just make it a little bit more complicated to put together here. So we won't be attaching the fans to the radiator because because we're going to be front mounting the radiator. So we're going to change some bolts around on some of these fans, and then we're going to mount the radiator to the front, and then these two fans are just going to go directly on the top of our case. So it'll sort of look similar in terms of its fan configuration, 3 on the front and 3 around the side here, but it won't be with the radiator top mounted in this case. Alright, so that's looking pretty tight. Sweet. Well, that's all prepped and ready to go. So let's turn our attention now to the case and getting that sorted. So we'll have sort of standard fan bolts on the top 2 fans there, but we need to remove them and put in the longer bolts that we would use to attach fans to a radiator, because we're going to be screwing these fans into the radiator and they're going to hold together on the front of the case there. So it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit of stuffing around. Yeah. My parents are on the GAN, if you know what that is. It's a train in Central Australia. So they're checking out the centre.
Tim's dad loves trains, so
Yeah. Yep.
And the trains are freaking cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a few train trips.
It's a good car.
Okay. None of that should have to change. We'll need to take this off. Okay. So like I said, I've got a few bolts to remove here. The fans aren't really changing position. We're just changing the direction and type of bolt. These bolts, the thick thread that screw into the actual fan, whereas we're going to replace these bolts with bolts that have a thin thread that screw directly into the radiator. This will enable us to mount the radiator in such a way that the pump won't die prematurely. That's always fun. No prematurely dead pump. Just a little bit of fucking around, but you can totally make it fly. The hardest part's probably just unscrewing all these freaking bolts. Okay.
Oh, jeez. I was full of beans 9 years ago. I mowed both front and backyards at the property. Plus I went to the fucking markets in the morning and then did some butchery.
Yeah, well that was your 20s, eh?
That was like 9 years ago.
Well, you stop producing like human growth hormone or whatever it is at like 25, so it's like sort of when the decline starts.
25, 27, around that age.
You're kind of good to go until then.
Now when I wake up, things hurt.
Yeah. Alright, just got a couple of extra offsets to install here quickly. Fucking hell.
Oh, she really does lose roots.
It's not mini me, it's maxi me. Alright. So I'm going to just chuck in one. And two. Okay. So now I've got our motherboard in the case, and we've got our radiator where we want it. This power cable can be routed down there. What have we got here? USB 3 cable was in the way of what we want to do here. And so I just want to kind of roughly line it up. And I'll get some screws ready. So when it comes to getting these mounted, it's a case of like get one in and you're sort of halfway there. Get another one in and you're like all the way there. You're just screwing in bolts after that. So let's get this one. This first one's screwed in place. And now we'll go for the opposite corner. There we go. And so now we've got one bolt in both fans into the radiator. Now it's a lot easier to line them up and screw in the rest. Oh, hang on. I need to slightly adjust the orientation here. this will sort our lives out. Like I said, it's not hard. It's just a little bit of a muck around. Yep, that's going to line up nicely for us. Oh, look at that. So yeah, obviously, once we've done this, it's effectively the same as having those other two 120mm fans mounted to it. I am just about done mounting the radiator.
Tim,
Yeah.
if you notice, he has a tube of them, mostly, which is around 2 years old. It would be okay to use.
If it's sealed, it should be fine.
Very good. It's specs.
If there's concern about longevity, they should have some information on their website. But my guess is.
No, that was somebody else.
Oh, sorry. What was the second one? Then I was talking about the other thing.
Specs of the computer, I'm assuming.
Specs of this computer. Oh, we went through it at the start. It's a Ryzen 5600G, 6600 XT, 32 gigabytes of RAM, etc.
Want to know more? Scroll back.
Yeah, scroll back, or yeah, just send me a message. Probably the easiest way. It's probably easier to contact me now than what it has been the last 6 months, just because I don't have any ads running at the moment, so I'm doing other stuff.
Friday, space, Tim's PC.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I wish it was Friday. I'm very excited. Just one more day.
And so now those bolts I took out of the fans at the front, I'm going to reuse them up here. Screw in the fans. just going to put a couple bolts in each and I'll screw the rest in later. I think everyone's seen enough of me screwing fans tonight. I reckon. So what RGB kit did we get with this cooler? That is, oh jeez, oh no, oh this is, I'm a fan of this. Got a proper addressable, fully powered 5-device RGB and fan controller. Just what this case doesn't have.
Very fancy.
Mm-hmm. Cool, 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 cool. Okay. So we've got these fans here. I'm going to put that to the side for now because we've still got one fan to go on the back. Or actually, before I go too far, got to be mindful of space.
It's Ellie's birthday today.
Huh?
It's Ellie's birthday today.
Ah. Elves are. Good like that, man. Okay, that's looking pretty good. All right. So Okay, that's looking pretty good around the front there. So let's deal with the power supply.
Meow, buddy. The food's cooking, alright? It's cooking. Gotta wait.
Okay, so we've got a fully modular power supply, which means we've got to plug in all of our cables. But we can just plug in the ones we need and we can skip the ones we don't need. Yeah.
Ethan says, can you guys cook some dinner for me too, please? Possibly.
I don't know if you'd want out dinner.
No, I'm a good cook. I can make things.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm the pavlova queen of
But-
the family.
But you're also really lazy.
Yeah, I
So
Hey,
we
I
still
still
take our
like work all the time.
yeah.
Cold, so I don't have time to cook.
Cat.
Ethan says, to mature and just fine.
Sweet.
Puppy, you're in the way now.
Big and large. He's some kind of a cat. He's some kind of a fucking cat, that's for sure. What's that?
He's part Maine Coon, part Ragdoll. That's what I'm assuming.
It's what we can ascertain.
He was a rescue, so I'm not completely sure. I really reckon he's part Coon, part Ragdoll. Ethan says, I hear this kid comes with some legal speaking these days. Dude, this cat's fast. I've had to chase him outside, and man, he moves like the wind when he wants to.
Yeah, but he overheats himself.
He does.
He runs so fast that I think this is the problem with cheetahs as well. They run
Yeah.
until they overheat themselves
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
physically can't go any further.
No.
Just cat things.
I swear to God, there's going to be a sign on our door saying, please keep the door shut. Our business.
He won't want to be downstairs much anyway, I don't think.
He normally comes downstairs when we're with us.
Hmm. Normally.
He's got to install a good water cooling bed.
good, thanks. I might just leave that there. Yeah. Yep.
He just doesn't have the really strong facial features of a purebred Maine Coon. He has the way his hair flows on his tail and on his back and stuff like that. Very Maine Coon, very stocky, very big. But then you pick him up and he's like ragdoll, just flops and runs. He's getting very fishy for dinner, aren't you, mate?
Alright. Put them out of the way now. Got a USB 2 and a HD audio. Let's plug our front panel connections in. This is for our power on and case lights. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so we've got some stuff around the back here to sort out. I'm just going to chuck one zip tie around this. And we're just going to tuck that away behind the lip there. And then we've got some SATA devices to plug in. So we've got one for our radiator and one for the RGB on our case. Tuck the rest of these cables into the unused 3.5-inch drive tray. Now we're just left with power cables and RGB and fan cables. So starting with this USB 3. And then we've got, I forgot about need SATA power to this controller here. I'm going to utilise that. Just got, oh, that one's the cable. This one's all that effort feeding it through. There we go. So now we've got that controller plugged in, and we can address it from the motherboard headers. So now we're getting to the end out here. now we can plug in our addressable RGB to this controller. Not magnetic. Oh, come on, guys! You came so close. Oh wait. No. They have provided a solution. Like, come on, guys.
Very pushy. Great, dude. Pushy
Yeah.
cat. Dude, I'm sorry, but it's a big one, so it needs. It's big like you, I guess. It needs longer to cook. Better fucking like this chicken too. It's expensive. It's really never get. So,
Yeah.
one else knows this for electronics.
I think so.
Somebody of actors, I'm assuming so.
I'm assuming so.
Ethan says working a good old radio 9600 XT could run Skyrim without burning the house down.
I wouldn't recommend it. Maybe undervolt. Excellent. Sweet as. We are pretty much all sorted now. We just need our graphics card.
Is that a husky that I see in your photo? Is it just
cat. Dog cat. The one in the world of little dog cat. Alrighty, so made some room for our graphics card, but before I forget, let's put a few extra bolts in on our motherboard. And so the reason I don't put them all in straight away is in case I want to discreetly route a thin cable behind the board so it just looks neater when this is all built. You don't have to do it this way, it's purely for aesthetics and the fact that I'm selling the PC to someone, so it's good if they like open it up and it doesn't look like a monkey. Very good. Very good. And finally, we have our graphics card power. And what are we going to do with that? Positioned. Alright. Very good. So I installed an extra cable here that I didn't need. remember whether the 6600 XT had just a single 8-pin or an 8+6 pin, or what the hell the Geo was. One other cable tie down here. Very good. Yeah.
Jamie wants to know, is the rear fan a must?
Is the rear fan a must? So the general principle that you try and run with when you're like setting up a PC configuration. Oh. A little bit tight from that controller there. Just a bit of gravity there. What's up?
Ethan says, everyone in my place it's real bad. The screw fell between the tower.
Oh no.
That means make sure the cable is just low enough the fan brushes over it with each rotation. Love that.
It's just that controller with the cables around it there. It's just keeping this from playing nicely. Let's push that down there. There we go. Okay, we ready to see if she works? Whether I'm going to have an easy night or a fun night. It's looking alive. Alrighty, looks like we're posting. Alright, so what have we got on here? 2.80 or 0.280, I should say. Yeah. Yep. Oh, that's a good sign. Okay, we have, so what can I make sense of this? So see here we've got the E7C95. So what we're looking for is the 7C95, and we will see the correct BIOS in that file. Yeah.
You want to know something crazy that Pulse is doing with their hot cross buns?
What?
You can get jalapeno hot cross buns.
Oh, it's not fucking around.
There's jalapeno and cheese.
Jalapeno and cheese hot cross buns.
Medium.
Fuck me
2
dead.
chilies. And then 4 packs. They're
Who the fuck
$3.50
came up
on
with
special.
that? Like
I
a
have no
pregnant
fucking
Latina?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't know. Alrighty, so this BIOS update here, this just makes our PC compatible with Windows 11 straight out of the box. So when and if Ella wants to upgrade to Windows 11, she'll just be able to click a few buttons and make it happen. Likes to take its sweet ass time to do this. Jesus. It's taking a sweet ass time. Now we're back in business. Yeah.
Probably. If you quit.
Pretty much. Anyway, we're into our Windows installation now. Enter the key later. We'll install Windows 10 Pro. Alright, so drive 0 is the drive we want to put it on. It's very important we make sure that the drive we're installing Windows on is drive 0. This won't take too long. Okay. We use the US keyboard layout. Don't worry, it won't take several minutes. Imagine being the sort of person who's just like, this might take several minutes, and then they're just like, fuck this man, turn the PC off. Alright, let's plug in some internet. Alright, let's get everything decluttered. Okay. We'll put some other software on here. Then some custom icons so I don't make a mess of the place. Okay. No. Ryzen CPU. Gaming apps. Alright, so let's get some diagnostic apps installed here. Most of these are pretty light. Crystal Disk Info is probably the heaviest one. A very handy app to have. Tells you the status of all your storage devices. That's weird. What sort of error am I getting there with? Okay. I haven't seen that error for a while. There we go. I think that's all we need from in here. What's up?
Ethan's wanting to use bulk crap uninstall for any retail board PCs. Seems easy or not.
Do you use bulk crap uninstaller for any retail? Oh, yeah. I mean, I normally, if I had a PC like that, I'd just go through and manually uninstall stuff that is not useful to me. It's normally what most people do. Yeah, everything I install here has a purpose and doesn't take up much space. Okay. Here we go. Alright. So we didn't have another hard drive or anything. Yeah. Yep.
Also great at installing a lot of stuff like VLC, Discord streams, Steam and Central and get your words out of the scene.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, no, look, I've thought of like making an app that would just like install this shit like at a click, but then everyone's computer's slightly different and just end up like running it and then having to uninstall shit on people's computers. Becomes a bit hectic. So let's get date and time fixed up. There we go. Yeah. When you run the benchmark, the bottom right number, yeah, the number that's it's on the bottom, the very bottom number on the screen is the frames per second that it runs at. I'll show you that in just a second. Just get all this final shit fixed up. force a restart on us. It's the AMD chipset drivers that'll trigger that. But that's okay. We've got our BIOS updated. I think I need to change the mode on the fans in BIOS. I'll do that when we restart. Alright, so put our XMP profile on for the memory, got our fans adjusted to PWM mode with the curve applied. It's nice and quiet now. Okay. Okay, it's looking good. That's not what I want. Where's the freaking... It's weird, I'm not seeing like just the update option from within this app. That's weird, unless they've changed it, because it downloads a new version every time. Okay, no, I'm not going to really worry too much about that. One more reboot here and we can run some benchmarks and do our stress test. Also, we'll turn off this annoying shit that launches automatically. We don't need 10,000 things fucking opening up automatically every time we open the computer. The stuff that runs in the background's fine. But I'm pretty sure we can decide what we want to do with our computer when we turn it on. CPU Z tells us sort of general information about our computer. CPU, motherboard, memory, graphics, and we can use this to just confirm that everything is running as expected, and it certainly is. So yeah, crystal disk info, that will give you status on your storage devices. So you've got a brand new one, it's been turned on 3 times. There's a little animation, little jingle to tell you that it's all good. This one, it's pretty similar, it just lets you test the speeds. But anyway, let's move on and let's run our first benchmark here. So this is Heaven. It's a DirectX 11 benchmark. We're just going to run it on the out-of-the-box settings, so high and no anti-aliasing. Also, what's my thoughts on CCleaner? Yeah, like various registry cleaning tools and whatever, they can be useful, but they're not, like if you buy a new PC, you're probably not going to need them for a little while, right? In general, if you don't install a lot of random stuff, you probably won't need apps like that because you'll just be able to manage all your stuff yourself. But it can make your life a little bit easier if you don't know what some of the stuff on your computer is. I'll say that. Because sometimes it's easy for me to think in my head, oh, I just do that on my own, and I forget that it's sometimes a bit daunting to go through apps and certainly registry entries and delete stuff. So but like obviously when you first get the computer, if you're not installing all sorts of stuff, it's generally not going to be a big deal. Yeah, in terms of like a general maintenance tool that you run like periodically, just for peace of mind, it's fine. I don't have any issues with people using tools like that and Malwarebytes and things like that. But my general advice is yeah, like if you're not downloading all sorts of and installing all sorts of random software, probably won't. It's not like fully essential. So it's not one of the apps that I put on all the PCs that I build, just because like for someone who's not like, if someone who's just like buying the computer and then they're just downloading games and stuff like that, they won't need it. They won't be installing all sorts of crap in the background, and yeah, it won't really be an issue. I don't like to overwhelm people with stuff. I just like to install stuff that's useful, that can just sort of sit there in the background, and then on a rainy day when it's needed, it can come out. So yeah, like as you can see here with the 6600 XT, it's a great gaming graphics card. We're getting like 3060 Ti level performance here, and we're certainly not at 3060 Ti money in terms of the graphics card that's in here. And yeah, this figure here below RAM, this is the frames per second. All this other stuff is just showing us stats of our device. Yeah, well, I mean, Intel versus AMD and Nvidia versus Radeon, they're two completely separate dualities right there, right? So Intel and AMD CPU wars, Radeon and Nvidia GPU wars. It's just AMD owns Radeon. That's where it can get a little bit confusing. Intel is not associated with Nvidia at all. It's not like there's AMD computers and then there's Intel Nvidia computers. See, a lot of people have that in their head, and that's just not. It's not how it is. If you've caught a lot of my builds, you'll see that I use an Intel CPU with an AMD graphics card all the time, and I use a Nvidia graphics card with an AMD CPU all the time. It's fine, but with Intel versus AMD, Intel basically had big problems with their products that they were developing the last few years. Until they released 12th gen, they were recycling a lot of the same architecture over and over again. And while that was going on, AMD had released their Zen architecture, which is Ryzen, and basically that was a big leap forward for AMD. And they overtook Intel on the CPU side of things, and now it's actually a really good time to get involved, because Intel's competitive again and AMD are firing back at Intel for releasing some new CPUs that are a new generation and a generational leap forward. So the competition is sort of back in the marketplace there, because AMD are about to launch new CPUs, new sockets, new motherboards, etc. So watch this space, we'll see how well they perform. And I would say that, yeah, compared to like the last 5 years, it's going to be a much more competitive time, at least on the CPU scene. And as for the graphics card scene, well, we'll just have to see what happens. Nvidia do have some pretty big market share in the graphics side of things. So, I mean, you know, major players can fall, but we'll see what happens there. I would say that there is more between Nvidia and Radeon than there is between Intel and AMD in terms of like the performance of their products and how much market share they sort of have. So, alright, so we'll run Valley, which is the next one. We do this one on ultra settings with max anti-aliasing. It's still a DirectX 11 benchmark, but this is sort of more how you'd run like a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 or something like that. You'd run it on ultra settings and stuff at probably a fairly high resolution and stuff like that. And it wouldn't matter if you are only getting like 60 to 70 frames per second. That's completely fine in a game like that. So frames per second, very important for like first person shooter games and stuff like that. Not as important for like role playing games where you're just like playing a game offline at home where you're walking around an open world sort of thing like that. A game like that, you generally want to have all the graphics settings turned up to max, so it looks really good, because you want the visual quality in a game like that. You don't really care about, you know, whether it's, you know, running at 150 frames a second or something like that. It's just not as important. You'd rather it look really, really good when you're playing a game like that. So There's nothing wrong with mixing and matching the brands like that. Some people think it's mutually exclusive, and it's like, no. This final one is a 4K benchmark. It's also DirectX 12. So, a more modern rendering mode. It's a little bit more demanding. And we're doing a 4K benchmark, so this is, if we wanted to run our games at 4K, you can expect a performance like this. Yeah, it's Holden versus Ford, Coke versus Pepsi, etc. All those sort of rivalries. It's they're two sides of the same coin, two flavors of the same drink. Like I use both. I've got an AMD and an Intel system, so personally I use both every day. There's different winners and different price points depending on the large games that you're doing and stuff like that. Different game, different products will win at different prices, etc. Once it's actually doing some rendering work, and that's kind of what we test when we do the stress test. Kind comment from Raphael on YouTube. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And yes, me and my partner both well. No COVID, no other sicknesses. I'm pretty much all healed up from my embarrassing fall the other week. Fuck. Still can't believe it. People say it's not embarrassing. I'm like, but it is. Excellent. Sweet as. Alright. Let's get a bit more serious with it now. Because gaming is not the most crazy kind of workload that we can put on our PC. What we're doing here, this is simulating running a 3D game. And we got another one over here. Cinebench. There we go, we'll run this one for 90 minutes. Alrighty. So go over to our CPU and Task Manager there. We can see we've got our 6 cores and 12 threads. Over here in Cinebench we've got 12 blue boxes working on this image. These are the 12 threads of our CPU, hard at work rendering this image. So what we're doing here, this is basically the same sort of stress that we'd be putting on the computer if we were rendering a video. So what we're doing there, rendering a video while we're also running a 3D game at the same time. So you're never going to be running a game and rendering a video at the same time. Or if you do, like, you would, yeah. If you do, I want to make sure you're definitely right. Though I'm not recommending actually running a game while you're trying to render a video in the background. That just sounds painful. And so while we're running this for 90 minutes on repeat, we're logging all of our temperatures here in CPU ID's hardware monitor app. And so we've got our graphics card down here. We can see GPU temperature is very, very cool and calm. Hotspot is also very cool and calm. So we're looking at 83 degrees as a limit for our GPU temperature and 100 degrees on the hotspot there. So definitely a lot of headroom there the way that it's running. And up the top here we have our motherboard temperatures here. So we have our CPU sys header. I'm not sure where that would be. I'm assuming it's going to be I'm assuming it will be somewhere probably around the RAM. We've got our MOSFET, chipset, CPU socket, and PCIe slot 1. And as we can see here, everything's really staying nice and cool. This case configuration, those front fans are pushing plenty of air through the radiator, keeping our CPU nice and cool there. So that can go up to 95 degrees. So we've got plenty of temperature headroom there, considering we're using it about as intensively as we'll ever use it. So based on what I'm seeing here, I don't see any reason why this is not going to pass the stress test with flying colours. So Ella will be able to pick this one up tomorrow if she wants. I'll make sure I have it all ready to go. Alright. Yeah, everything's going well here, so this is the point of the night where I just throw it over to anyone who's still watching live. If you have any other questions for me before I sign off, now is your time to speak. Ethan says, beautiful work, man. Yeah, no, it came up all right. I'm pretty happy with that. Christine made a good observation with this cooler. Having the pump where it is meant that, yeah, we definitely didn't want to have that radiator installed up the top. And that would have led to yeah, premature pump failure most likely. And if it didn't lead to premature pump failure, it will definitely last longer in this configuration, because pumps are designed. You can have pumps that work with gases, right? That's a thing too, but pumps are either designed to move liquids or gases. They're not designed usually to move both. So a typical pump that's designed to move liquid should always be submerged in liquid. So in an all-in-one liquid cooler, you've got a pocket of air. So the theory is to make sure that the pocket of air will stay at the high point in the loop, and to make sure that the pump is not at the high point of the loop. So it can be midway in the loop, it can be right down the bottom of the loop. It doesn't really matter as long as it won't have a pocket of air sitting inside the pump while it's trying to move liquid. Because what happens is, if an air pocket stays inside a pump that's designed to move liquid, it basically just won't move as much liquid. Then it will start getting hot because pumps that are designed to move liquid, they're designed to be cooled by the liquid that they that flows through them in a lot of cases. So if there's an area that doesn't get any liquid that flows over it, it starts to heat up. And so then you've got a case where your pump starts to work like hard out trying to move this air through. It's never going to move the air through. The air's just going to stay in the high point, locked up there. So you always want to make sure that your pump is not at the high point. So if your pump is over your CPU, then you pretty much can't go wrong top mounting your radiator. However, if the radiator is where the pump's located, you really can't have that top mounted. So a lot of people learn that lesson the hard way, and I guess if you're in the world of just all-in-one liquid coolers and you have no idea about like the custom loop water cooling side of things, you may or may not be familiar with that design, that operational characteristic of a pump. So just an FYI as to why we put the radiator on the front in this case, just if you were wondering. Alright, I think that pretty much wraps it up for tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow night. We've got two RTX 3080 builds in a row the next 2 nights. So if you're after seeing something a little bit more high-end get put together, definitely check that out. What's really cool though is that we're starting to see RTX 3080 PCs, the price is starting to drop down. We had one under $3,700 with an RTX 3080 card in it, and decent specs. So I'm pretty happy with that because they were all over $4,000 no matter what you did, pretty much not so long ago. So starting to see a bit of movement there in price. So happy days. Luke said he'll be there tomorrow to pick up Ella's PC. Sweet as, no worries. Best time. Just a second, let me just sort of roughly plan out my morning and I'll let you know. Anytime between 10 and 12 would probably be okay. If I'm not here, I won't be far away. So yeah, send me a message and we'll work out collection and all that. Sweet as. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Definitely the YouTube channel. We've got heaps of likes on Facebook, but not as many on YouTube. So get on over to YouTube and drop us a sub there. That would be really helpful as well. But yeah, I'll catch you all tomorrow in the next video.